Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm back to talk about The Flash, episodes 717 and 718, which act as the two-part season finale. You got Heart of the Matter Part 1 and Heart of the Matter Part 2, which aired July 13th and on July 20th, 2021. Part 1 actually was the 150th episode of the series, so double the whammy of the milestone there. So yeah, before we get really right into it, first off, I'm recording. It's been 2 hours since part 2 has aired, even though I did watch part 1 a few hours before part 2 came on the CW, so they're all both freshly in my mind. But if you haven't seen the 2 parts already, please go do so first, and then come back and see what I have to say about the episodes. My other video reminders are up on screen, so take a moment to remind yourselves of those. And yeah, so because it's a two-parter, it only makes sense to talk about episode 17 and then go into episode 18. So let's do that now. So timeline-wise, I believe it's shortly after the events of 716, because 716 is right when Nora and Bart come speeding into the present day. And within the episode itself, Nora has pointed out that Barry has only known Bart for a few hours, which is why I think it's only shortly since where we ended off was 716, with everything that's happened. Plus, it said that they were at least in 2021 themselves as well. So that's something there. Also, we do actually find out the ages of both Nora and Bart in this episode. We get confirmation that since they're both from 2049, Bart is 19, which makes him born in the year 2030. And Nora is not his twin, but she's actually 26. Therefore, she was born in 2023. So our present day Flash has 2 years before he becomes Nora's dad, if things continue the way that they're going. So that is something there for dates, which is finally we got some, because I know that was one thing that Nora tried to not tell us when she was originally with us in season 5, was trying not to let us know date-wise how old she was, so that Barry and Iris couldn't figure out when she was conceived and stuff like that. So yeah. Anyways, villain, obviously Godspeed, and their whole clone action that they're dealing with. But the opening scene of the episode is set in 2049, where Nora and Bart are fighting against Godspeed right before he travels back to 2021. Now, the storylines, I picked up on 3 different ones. With the first one being history repeating itself, second one being personal traumas, and the third one midway mysteries. Now, with the first storyline, this is kind of the huge A story plot of the episode, which is dealing with August Hart, aka Godspeed, finding out that he's Bart's arch nemesis. He's the one that killed Jay Garrick, who had a huge influence on Bart. He pretty much called Godspeed his own Thawne. We also see Iris being temporarily stabilized by Dion, who is searching for a cure as to why Iris is kind of fritzing out between the timelines. So it allows her to actually meet her future kids again, and to actually try to help out, in a sense. But also with history repeating itself, Barry and Iris realize that if they don't stop Godspeed now, then their kids are just going to go through the same tragic cycle that they've had to deal with since becoming a speedster. We also see the clones kidnapping the present day Jay Garrick to get to Bart, since now their mission is now to kill the adversary, which is Bart. Moving on to second storyline, personal traumas. It's kind of split between two of them, because we get Caitlin and Cecile trying to help August Hart regain his memory, which he lost when he time traveled back. But when he comes across the speed treadmill, he reacts to it with a sense of familiarity, and there's a bit of a lightning spark between him and the device. Another thing about a trauma in this episode was that Allegra's grief over Esperanza dying in the previous episode has her tapping into her cousin's versions of her cousin's power, which she drew on negative energy, as opposed to Allegra's own power, which drew on positive energy. I didn't think the two of them were interchangeable, but apparently they are so. And this is also when Chester finds out about Esperanza's death, and Allegra's blaming herself for it and not being there for her cousin. Now, with the third storyline with Midway Mysteries, we still have Joe and Kristen Kramer outside of Central City, and Kramer is giving her statement to the FBI after they've handed Adam Craik over to them, but she refuses to acknowledge Adam's claims that she had died 6 years ago, despite Joe's insistence that they need to talk about it or they have to share it with somebody. Which we will talk about later, for sure. Later in the video, not later in the episode. The last scene of the episode shows, after using Jay Garrick's invention and with Cecile's guidance, Barry goes into August Hart's subconscious to find the answers to stopping the Godspeed War. And he comes face to face with Godspeed August, who has his full memory intact, with the true mystery of what he wants, kind of a thing. Now, major tidbits. There's some things we find out about the future of 2049, and that is Nora works with Gideon and Chester, who has repaired her gauntlets, and she has deemed him the smartest person. So there's that. We have Bart always sporting I don't know if he always sports the silver nail polish when he's in the suit, but it seems to go with it. But then again, they're always in the suit, so who knows? So there's that, but we also find out which I think is really cool too, but we also find out that he's just getting used to his powers, and that he's also a freshman in college, and he claims that Chester has helped him with some very complex homeworks a lot in the past, so there's that. We also find out that Nora and Bart they know Caitlin and they know Dion, and now Cecile is called Grammy Cecile instead of Mama Cecile, So there's that. And also, they know about the original Nora West Allen. So the version we met in season 5, they know about her because Barry and Iris have told them stories about her. And apparently, they have West Allen family rules about powers and specifically time travel. So that's up there. We also get a brief moment in Keystone City where we see Jay Garrick and Joan Williams, who are originally from Earth 3. We find Jay has just recovered from getting his speed back before the clones came to kidnap him. We also have Cisco returning after being updated by Diggle about the Godspeed War that's happening in his hometown. And also, here's something questioning. We saw exterior shots of S.T.A.R Labs, and it looked like it was under repair again, but I could have sworn for the last few episodes, it looked like S.T.A.R Labs was already completely repaired and fully restored. So I don't know what the hell is going on with that. Unless they're implying that the Godspeed's attack on the lab has made it damaged again in need of repair. So I don't know. But let's move on to the most shocking moment of the episode. Well, first off, I'm shocked as a screenwriting student to realize that this episode, and possibly all the other Flash episodes, it follows the teaser and six-act structure instead of the teaser 5-act structure, which I had been left to believe this whole time. So I'm a little shocked by that. But when it comes to the story, I think the most shocking thing was the fact that Nora and Bart aren't twins. Because I don't know, maybe it's because everybody in all the comments that I've been reading elsewhere, and since I don't know the comics at all, everybody has been talking about the Tornado Twins, about the theories of what the future of Barry and Iris's kids would be. So I just assume when in the previous episode when Nora kept talking about you'd be twice as excited, and it made it seem like Nora was Bart's twin, right? So to find out that no, that's not actually the case, that she's actually older by by 7 years, I was like, wait, what? Really? And it was just okay, I was definitely not expecting that at all. So that was a surprise there. But let's move to top favorite moments. Nora and Bart absolutely would be a favorite, just because not only their presence, but their dynamic reaction to each other. They you really get the sibling vibe from them. You get, now that I know that Nora's the older sister, you see the annoyance she gets that little brothers could only give to older sisters, kind of a thing. And then them both being equally excited at the news that they get to stay longer in the past and just having to go back. And then having them both worried for each other, and then having each other's backs, or even the betrayal when they didn't have each other's backs. It was just very interesting to see the array of emotions between these two, and it was so excited to see it. And it's just they really are the best merger of Barry and Iris in regards to personality and stuff. So that's something there. Another favorite I did have was the fact that we got all these special appearances from Jay Garrick, from Joe and Williams, and from Cisco. Granted, Cisco's only been away for a few episodes, but I'm glad that he came back for the 150th episode. And yes, Joan still has the same face as the OG Nora Allen, and then the Speed Force took her same face. So it's not really a huge surprise that we get Joan, but it was great to see Jay Garrick after not seeing him for so long. But it was great to just see all those characters being brought back. We got to hear a lot of name drops also, so I do appreciate that as well. Another favorite, though, was actually probably this small, slight thing, but it was the moment that Jay Garrick realizes his importance to Bart. It's when Bart just got unconscious, and Nora was talking about how it's what Godspeed does. It's what Godspeed does. He targets the people we care about the most. And then that moment when the camera just focuses on Jay Garrick, and you see that look on him when he realizes that, oh, he was taken because of Bart's connection to him. And like, yes, this Jay Garrick wouldn't know about it because Bart's from the future, but Bart's Uncle Jay played a huge part in helping him. And then also we find out when Bart wakes up in the second part and calls him Uncle Jay, and him just being taken aback by it, but then also liking it. It was just like, oh, I really want to see, like, hearing about that dynamic was like heartbreaking for Bart to have lost his Uncle Jay, but then to see it forming, but also just being like going back into the swing of it, even though for Jay it's just like it's brand new for him. It was just like, oh, that moment, just like, yes, you realize how important you are to him. Like, don't lose that kind of thing. So I really appreciate it. It was that small thing. It was that small reaction from him, and it conveyed so much. And it's just like, yes, I want that. Or I like seeing that. So let's move on. I didn't really have any peeves that I could find in this episode, but I did have a lot of questions. So the first one is, if Nora was born in 2023, and my math says she is, then what is making Iris destabilize and needing Dion's help from the Still Force? Because I thought if that one possibility of Iris kind of fritzing out between the timelines and needing the Still Force to stabilize her, I thought it might have been because she was pregnant with twin speedsters. And that might have been the reason why she couldn't stabilize herself. But if Nora doesn't get conceived until 2023, from 2 years from now, then I'm wondering what is making Iris ill the way she is right now, like needing to be stabilized and have that Dion's help with, like, you know. So that's a question there. And another question: does Kramer believe in Adam's claim that she did die 6 years ago? The way she was acting, I don't think she does. And maybe she just doesn't want to believe him now after all the lies. But, yeah. I mean, that's kind of a hard, like, I'm like Joe in that situation. It's like, wouldn't you want to know why he would think something like that? Like, you know? So there's that. But we do get answers in part 2, which is what we're going to talk about now. So, the timeline for 718 is that it does continue from the events of 717, because, again, part 1, part 2, of course. And Villain, of course, continues to be Godspeed and his many, many clones. And the opening scene is Nora freaking out by Bart's unconscious side in the medical bay of S.T.A.R Labs as the clones continue to attack on the streets and in front of Joe and Kramer. I guess the reason why I would say it continued from 717 is because Joe and Kristen Kramer are still in their car as 2 Godspeeds are fighting on top of the hood of the car. So that's kind of why. But let's move on to storylines. 3 different storylines, and this time it's not 3 separate storylines. It's more of like 3 different stages of the episode, you could say. First one being Speedsters Reunite, second one being the organic transfer fail, and the third one being a new celebration. So with the first storyline, I'm going to say that we get Speed Force Nora giving all the speedsters a boost, including Iris, who just has a smidge of Speed Force in her, but with the power boost, she's able to be a temporary speedster. And then with Chester's device, they use it to try to destabilize or depower all the artificial cells in the clones. That kind of backfires on them. So when it's Speedsters versus clones, instead of dampening their speed, it ends up recharging them, and then the device gets burnt to a crisp. They feed off the Speed Force Nora, which depletes all the Speedsters' boost against them. So that leads their original plan to a fail, which goes to storyline number 2, which is their second one. And that is Barry giving in to August's ultimatum of giving him organic speed. So Barry decides to do so, thinking that if he does that and hoping that it would change August to not be the August of 2049, but to a new August who got what he wanted with the organic speed. But instead, once he gets the organic speed, his memories return and he still wants to kill the Flash, which leads to Barry teaming up with Eobard Thawne to go against Godspeed. And Eobard Thawne returned thanks to the help of Speed Force Nora and Iris, who brought him back, which I'm still confused by, but they brought him back. And they fight. Some lightning type sabers were used against the 3 Speedsters, which is very different because you'd expect them to be running around instead of Speedsters, but in the end, Thawne was the one that incapacitated Godspeed, and not in the way not in the way that Barry would have liked, but it still happens, and Thawne escapes. The third storyline, A New Celebration, is actually the last scene of the episode because it's when Barry and Iris renew their vows in front of their friends and their family. But just before they do this, Joe gets a visit from Kristen Kramer, and between them, it states that they haven't seen each other in a week. So I'm assuming that this vow renewal takes place a week after they have stopped Godspeed. And since Bart and Nora are still there, I'm guessing they were allowed to stay the week to watch the renewal. I don't know. That seems like a stretch. But yeah, they renew their vows. Cisco is present as well. Jay and Joan were able to stay too. So it's a great loving affair for the West Island family. Moving on to major tidbits, though. We see Barry getting faster than Thawne, which surprises the Reverse Flash. We also see Frost still being furious with Mark Blaine when she refuses to bring him as the +1 to the vow renewal, instead brings Caitlin. We also find out that Kramer is on an indefinite leave of absence with the CCPD because she has to reevaluate her previous stance on metahumans after finding out that she is actually one too, which I am going to lead into as my most shocking moment of the episode. So, when Joe's life was on the line, when a Godspeed was about to kill him, Kramer speeds towards Joe like a speedster and saves him. That was a shock right there. Say, like, wait, she's a speedster too? But no, it turns out that Kramer, yes, is a metahuman, but she's not a speedster. She's a meta that mimics the powers of any meta in close proximity to her. So when she died in that blast 6 years ago, since Adam Craig had immortality as his meta ability as a mimic, she copied that and which allowed for her to survive that explosion. And then when Joe was in danger from Godspeed clone, she mimicked the speed from the clone to get to Joe in time to save him. So a mimic meta is not the first time I've heard of it. Kind of looked on the Umbrella Academy, if you know what I mean. But it was very cool to get an answer, because I thought maybe she would have had the immortality thing with Adam, but then I'm also thinking, like, the chance of you two both having the same power and not being related to each other seemed very coincidental. Too coincidental for my taste. So the fact that she's a mimic, I pretty much prefer that a lot better, but that also means that you have no way of knowing what power she's going to copy. And for her, that's going to be completely unpredictable as well, too. So that was a huge shock right there. And I'll explain that one was a shock more so than another one you're probably thinking of. in just a few moments. Now let's move to my top favorite moments. First favorite is Barry and Iris renewing their vows. Yes, originally they got married during the Earth X Crisis on Earth X crossover event, but Barry was right, saying it wasn't really the wedding that they deserved, so that he wanted to give her one that was more fitting for them, and they did, and it was beautiful and lovely. And Cisco's commentary, little moments as the minister, were just hilarious, interrupting in between each of their speeches and giving his own thoughts to it, of encouragement, of course, or ribbing in Barry's case. And it was just like so fun and lighthearted. And then the huge surprise of the fact that Bart was singing to his parents, and it was like, I know Jordan Fisher can sing, I know that, but I wasn't expecting it on the show. I mean, does Bart have a singing talent in the comics? Like, we know Barry can sing, so like we know that Joe can sing, so it's like, I know sometimes they would want it to utilize the actor's abilities, but like, does Bart in the comics can sing? I mean, it was a very lovely surprise, and it definitely had everybody with emotional responses to it. I mean, Iris was in tears from it, so it was just like, that was a huge surprise. Loved it. Another favorite I did have was just seeing the Speedster family. All of them together. We have Barry, obviously, we have Nora, and we have Bart, but then we also got the Speed Force chipping in, we got Jay Garrick chipping in, and then we also got Iris chipping in temporarily as a speedster. So that was all pretty cool to see them coming back. I mean, technically that's not a huge surprise since it was in the promo at the very last smidgen of it. And kind of you'd want to see, if you're getting all these people and familiar faces coming back, then like you'd want to. I kind of wish Wally was there too, but they didn't mention him in part 1 about why he wasn't available to like come help them, because he was like off the grid or something. So, yeah. Yeah, we'll leave it at that, because the next favorite I had was actually the team up between Barry and Eobard Thawne. Definitely unexpected, but I'm glad that it's something that Barry thought about all the way through, and he wasn't just like half-assed about it. Now, the reason why Thawne's involvement wasn't the shocking moment was because I accidentally, foolishly of me, kind of spoiled myself when I checked the IMDb page and saw that Tom Cavanaugh was back as the Reverse Flash in this episode. So it's like, oh crap, I just spoiled it for myself. But I wasn't expecting the reason he came back was because Barry kind of summoned him, essentially. So that was a surprise. And it was very interesting to see them both teaming up against Godspeed. I was kind of surprised that Godspeed needed both of them in order to take him on, because I kind of would have assumed that Thawne would have outsmarted Godspeed a little bit more. But Barry was right that Thawne had no limits when it came to how to deal with Godspeed, except for the fact that like he didn't want anybody else to kill Barry, or he couldn't let anybody else kill Barry. I don't know what the deal is. Again, I don't read the comics, and there's so much things have changed with Thawne, with him changing time and stuff like that. I have no clue what sticks anymore. So there's that, but it was just great to see him again. I kind of wish that when they got Tom, that also meant maybe we got to see Wells, maybe, for like the ceremony for something. But yeah, at least they got to appear at some point as someone in this episode. So there's that. Top peeve moments. The only peeve I really had was the fact that I was more so surprised that Zoom wasn't mentioned at all in this episode. Or even his tactics, because I think Godspeed is pretty much like Zoom 2.0 with the whole need to be the fastest man alive, using artificial speed to do so. So I was kind of surprised that Zoom wasn't mentioned at all, whether as like a reference point or as someone that like August Hart like looked up to, essentially. But also because it was kind of like a two-parter of like the 150th episode, kind of, sort of. I would have expected some kind of a history point from that. But anyways, that was just it. But let's move on to random questions. A little bit more because of the fact this is like the final episode of the season, like the final. And the first one is, with Thawne's escape, is that a setup for him returning at some point in the next season? Second, if August Hart is at Iron Heights, then what did Thawne do to him with the red lightning rod sword thing that he had? I thought initially when he did it that he killed August Hart, and that's why Barry was furious with him. But then they mentioned at the team debriefing that August was in Iron Heights. So I'm kind of confused about, like, well, what did Thawne do? I'm also kind of surprised that he didn't kill him if that was the case. So there's that. Now, speaking of August Hart, though, if August Hart is stopped in 2021, does that affect 2049 that Bart and Nora are coming from? Or no, because August Hart still came from 2049, he's just now incarcerated in 2021. So it didn't really change the past because, like, it's not like the 2021 version of August that was changed. Right? Am I understanding that properly? Because now I kind of wondered, well, if Bart and Nora were to go back to the future, is Uncle Jay still alive then? Did anything change? But I'm not thinking that now that I really think about it, you know? So that's a question there. And a last question. Will Joe return to his job at the CCPD since Kramer is stepping down? So that's what they are wanting to know when we go back to season 8 to see how things go. Oops. Yeah. Accidentally click a button on my remote. Anyways, so that's about it, guys. Since that was the season finale of season 7, I'm kind of wondering whether or not, like, that was, like, the official... I think that was the official end. Like, it wasn't like we're going to get the remaining episodes of the season next season. I think this was the actual way that the season was meant to end. So, so because they didn't leave it on a cliffhanger, they left it on a happy note, actually. I don't know what to expect in season 8. But we do know that it's going to premiere on Tuesday, November 16th, 2021 at 8 p.m. It's starting a lot later than the other Arrowverse shows. But apparently the first episode is maybe meant to be part of a 5-episode event that's supposed to feel like a crossover event. I don't know if I read that correctly. But we'll have to wait and see about that. But I'm kind of curious to find out, like, where would season 8 go? Because, like I said, there's no cliffhanger. There's nothing really to go off of, like, what that would mean. Are Nora and Bart going to be back in the future by then? Are they sticking around? Like, what have you? I have no idea. But yeah, so that is pretty much it, guys. What did you guys think of the 2-part finale? Also about the 150th episode. What do you think will happen next in the next season? What do you think could come? What do you make of any of the future tidbits we found out from 2049? Please let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, theories, and opinions about all that good stuff. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. Link for that is down below. I reblog promos, web clips, quotes, GIFs, and off-season news, all that good stuff. All follow one place. Go check that out. I am behind, but it's on the list of things I need to do. Maybe now that the season is over, I could just push it all at once, kind of thing. So just keep on the lookout for that. Again, WordPress link is down below as well. Anything I post online is connected to WordPress. A little more organized, a little more detailed, but still in work in progress as well. And that's about it, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for just tuning in for my Flash videos. At this point right now, I don't think I'm going to do the season 8 recap videos for it, just because of, I hope by that point where the episode starts, I'll be able to actually get my own projects running and hopefully get people and producers interested to maybe get something out there for you guys. But yeah, it's definitely, I'm hoping to put more of my time into my career, which is why I'd have to take a step back from the recap videos. And for the Flash, it just seemed like that was one of the options too. But in case that does change, you can always click the notification bell and to be notified whenever I post a video. And if it just so happens it's a Flash video, then definitely come back and see that. Also, I'm not even sure, because I'm pretty sure San Diego Comic-Con, like the at-home version, is supposed to be happening sometime this weekend. I'm not sure if the Flash is going to be featured there or not. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Anyways, guys, that's all I have to say. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great day. Have a great week. Great summer. Please stay safe. And bye for now.